This story is being told through the lenses of a boy called Ben. He is the fourth son of the Agus. They live in a town called Akure. He has five brothers and one sister. The brothers are Ikenna, who is the oldest and is about 15 years old. Then we have Boja, who is around 14. The third born is called Obembe, who is very close to Ben in age, and they are always together. Ben is around 9 years old when this story is taking place. He also has a younger brother called David, and the last born of the family is his toddler sister called Yinkem. Ben's family is a bit well off, and their parents have been able to provide their basic needs, and then some. Their father works at the central bank, and their mother runs a food stall in the market. The story begins with their father being transferred to another town. It is considerably far as he visits once every 2 weeks. This is not good news to their mother, as she feels the boys will lack discipline in their father's absence. This guy was strict and knew how to make sure all his children were in line. Shortly after their father leaves, the boys, as their mother had foreseen, begin going wayward. Every day after school, the four boys go to the Omiala River and begin to fish. Here's why there's a big problem. Firstly, fishing is something that would be frowned upon by their father, as he had big plans and manifested great careers for his boys. He wanted all of them to go study and become doctors, lawyers, pilots, that sort of thing, African parent kind of thing. Secondly, the people believed the river was cursed, as there used to be traditional ceremonies and sacrifices that would take place along this river. And with the advent of Christianity in the town, all that stuff was taboo. The boys do this for 6 weeks without their mother's knowledge. However, one day, one of their mother's friends sees them, and of course, she snitches on them to their mother like any woman would do. Their mom is shocked and cannot believe this was happening right under her nose. She phones their father, and when he comes home, he severely punishes them. Each of the four boys gets some lashings. Ikenna, being the oldest, gets the most, as their father places the blame on him for not being a good leader. He promises that he will provide leadership and not lead his brothers astray. Unbeknownst to the parents, something very odd happened to the boys in that period they were fishermen. One day, as they had finished their shifts, they came across a madman called Abulu. Now, Abulu is a true madman. If Madman held conferences, he would be on every panel. People say Abulu was hit by a car when he was younger and lost his mind. This guy is a menace to society. One interesting, however, about him is that he prophesies about people, and most times these prophecies actually come true. He usually enters into this trance where he sees somebody and says a prophecy over them, and then he forgets completely what he was saying and continues on in his business. But somehow these prophecies just continue coming true. It's gone to the point where Abulu even helps police catch criminals. So on the day that they encounter this madman, he makes a prophecy about Ikenna, which is that he will be killed by our fishermen. Ikenna completely freaks out. He starts being hostile towards his brothers. He sees this prophecy about fishermen as a hint that one of his brothers will kill him. He even starts rebelling against his mom. At this time, their father has gone to Ghana for 3 months, so their mother is left alone to deal with Ikenna's defiance. Tensions continue to rise, especially between Ikenna and Boja, who are the older ones. Ben is completely distraught and doesn't fully understand Ikenna's metamorphosis. As the weeks continue, Boja has just had enough of Ikenna. An argument ensues between them, and it quickly turns violent. The two boys begin to fight in the yard. Ben and Obembe try to break up the fight, but they can't as they are not strong enough. They run to ask a neighbor called Mr. Bide for help. When they return home with him, they don't see anybody in the yard. They look around the house. When they go to the kitchen, they find Ikenna lying there with a knife in his stomach. This is really shocking to the boys. Boja is nowhere to be seen. This is a huge blow to the family. The firstborn son has died and has been killed by the secondborn. So it turns out that Abulu's prophecy has come true. Their father gets the news and he comes back home immediately. Their mother blames him for not being around during this period where Ikenna was rebelling, she feels that he could have stopped this whole thing from happening. Even as they plan for Ikenna's burial, they are still searching for Boja. The search doesn't last long though, as a few days later, Boja is found. Turns out that after Boja killed Ikenna, he indeed did not run away. He was in the compound. His body is found in the well floating. The family has lost their second son. Due to the nature of his death, he cannot be buried but is cremated. After these events, Ben's mother completely loses it. The pain is too much to bear, and she is taken to a mental hospital. She stays there for some time, and their father stays home to take care of the kids. He decides to open a shop in Akure and will not go back to work at the central bank. Their mother's condition progressively improves and she comes back home. Obembe is now the oldest son, and he feels a responsibility to avenge his brothers. His mother blames Abulu for what has befallen them. He makes it his mission to end Abulu's reign of terror. Ben is a bit hesitant to follow his brother's plans, but also feels his mother's pain, so he agrees. They hatch a plan to poison Abulu. They buy some rat poison and put it in some bread and give it to Abulu. Abulu eats the bread, and shockingly, nothing happens to him. This guy is unbelievable. It's as if he's immortal. Obembe does not give up, however. During this period, as he's plotting how to kill Abulu, their father has organized a way for the two boys to go to Canada. Obembe does not want to leave Akure before completing his mission, so he has a sense of urgency. He takes the fishing rods they used to use to fish and barbs them with a lot of fishing hooks. These are the weapons they will use. They find Abulu in his usual spot by the river and ambush him, tearing into his flesh using the rods. Abulu falls into the river. However, two soldiers see what the boys have done and attempt to apprehend them. The boys find a way to get away and run home. Abulu's body is found shortly after. This is not good news, as the boys thought it would take some time before he is found, and they would have already traveled to Canada by then. This development means that they have to run away before the police come to their house. Obembe convinces Ben to pack their belongings and run away in the middle of the night. As they are running away, Ben begins having second thoughts. He tells Obembe he wants to go back home. An argument ensues, but Obembe decides to move forward, and Ben goes back home. The next day, police come to their home, and Ben is arrested. His father is surprisingly proud of what they have done. He tells Ben not to feel sorrow, as he has avenged his brothers. Since Ben is still a child, he cannot do much time, but he also cannot be taken to juvie because of the magnitude of the crime that they have committed. He is sentenced to jail up until he becomes an adult. Ben spends 6 years in jail. During this time, he gets a few letters from Obembe. Obembe managed to run away to Benin. He was now living with a woman who adopted him and loved him. He tells Ben that there's some things that he cannot tell him about the life that he is living now because it will make him sad. He just says that he is living with a widow and he has become a man. Ben is let out 2 years earlier than expected because of a presidential pardon. When he leaves the prison, he sees his younger siblings, who are much older now. He can barely recognize their town. Everything seems so unfamiliar to Ben as he's out of prison for the first time in 6 years. As he enters their compound, he sees someone's shadow move across the fence. He tries to find out who it is. After asking a few times for the person to reveal themselves, Obembe appears before him. Now, it is unclear if Ben is hallucinating or it is actually his brother before him. Mr. Chigozie leaves us guessing at the end. Now, there's obviously a lot of details that I've left out about the story. You guys just have to read the book. It's one of the most fascinating books that I've ever read. That is The Fisherman by Chigozie Obioma.